"I'm going to count to 3, the officer snarled, his hand gripping the teenager's shoulder. "If you aren't out of this first-class seat, you're going out in cuffs." Everyone expected the girl in the hoodie to cry. They expected her to beg. But Bella Sterling didn't flinch. She just looked at her watch and whispered, "In 10 seconds, you won't be worrying about this seat. You'll be worrying about why the engines just turned off." The passengers laughed until the lights actually died. This is the story of how one corrupt cop and an entitled billionaire tried to humiliate the wrong girl, and how one phone call didn't just cancel a flight, it ended their careers. The air inside the cabin of Regal Atlantic Flight 929 smelled of recycled lavender and heated leather. It was the smell of money. This was the transatlantic red-eye from JFK to London Heathrow, a route frequented by old money, tech giants, and diplomats. Bella Sterling adjusted the noise-cancelling headphones over her ears and pulled the hood of her oversized charcoal-grey university sweatshirt further down. She was 19, tired, and just wanted to sleep. She had spent the last 3 weeks in an intensive coding boot camp in San Francisco and was flying to London to surprise her father for his 50th birthday. She curled her legs up onto the massive seat of 1A, the most coveted spot on the plane, and closed her eyes. She didn't look like the typical clientele of Regal Atlantic's Emperor class. She wore worn-out sneakers, no makeup, and that baggy hoodie. To the untrained eye, she looked like someone who had wandered in from the bus terminal. To the trained eye, however, the vintage Patek Philippe watch on her wrist was worth more than the flight attendant's car. But Beatrice Vanderwall had an untrained eye. Beatrice was a woman who wore her wealth like armor. Draped in a Chanel tweed suit that was a season out of fashion but still aggressively expensive, she marched down the aisle of the first-class cabin. She was followed by her husband, Richard, a man who looked like he had been apologizing for her behavior since 1995. Beatrice stopped at row 1. She looked at her boarding pass, seat 1B, looked at the empty seat next to Bella, and then looked at Bella, her nose wrinkled as if she had smelled sour milk. "Excuse me," Beatrice said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. Bella didn't hear her. The music in her headphones was loud. Beatrice huffed, her face flushing a distinct shade of indignation. She reached out and tapped, hard, on Bella's shoulder. Bella jumped, sliding her headphones down. "Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there." Her voice was soft, polite. "Obviously," Beatrice snapped. "You are in the wrong section, dear. Economy is back that way. Way back. Pass the curtain." She pointed a manicured finger toward the rear of the plane. Bella blinked, confused. She checked the digital display on the armrest. "No, I'm good. This is 1A. I'm assigned here." "Don't be ridiculous," Beatrice laughed, a dry, humorless sound. She turned to the rest of the cabin, seeking an audience. "Is this a joke? Is the airline doing some sort of charity outreach program I wasn't informed about?" "Ma'am, I have a ticket," Bella said, her patience already fraying. She reached for her phone to show the digital boarding pass, but Beatrice waved her hand dismissively. "I don't care what you have on your little screen. People like you don't sit in seats like this. These tickets cost $12,000. Beatrice leaned in, dropping her voice to a conspiratorial whisper that was still loud enough for the first 3 rows to hear. "Did you sneak in while the attendants were busy? Just go back to your seat before you get in trouble. I won't tell anyone." "I paid for this seat," Bella said, her voice hardening slightly. "Please stop touching my shoulder." "Richard!" Beatrice shrieked, turning to her husband. "She's refusing to move. She's probably dangerous. Look at that hood. She could have a weapon." The commotion summoned the lead flight attendant, a frazzled woman named Sarah. Sarah had been flying for 15 years, but she had a weakness. She was terrified of platinum status complainers, and Beatrice Vanderwall was a Diamond Platinum member. "Mrs. Vanderwall, is there a problem?" Sarah asked, rushing over with a forced smile. "There is a massive problem, Sarah," Beatrice spat. "There is a squatter in 1A, a stowaway. She smells like street food, and she's refusing to leave. I paid for a relaxing flight, not a hostile experience. Get her out." Sarah looked at Bella. She saw the hoodie. She saw the young, black face. She saw the worn sneakers. And then she made the mistake that would cost her a pension. She didn't ask to see Bella's boarding pass. She assumed. "Miss," Sarah said, her voice dropping to that patronizing tone adults use on toddlers. "I need to see your boarding pass, now." "I tried to show her," Bella said calmly, unlocking her phone. She held up the screen. It clearly displayed M. Sterling. Seat 1A, Priority 1. Sarah glanced at it, but didn't actually read it. She was too focused on Beatrice glaring at her. "Miss, I need to see the actual ticket, or the credit card used to book it. Sometimes the system glitches and upgrades people by mistake." "It wasn't a mistake," Bella said. "And I don't have the physical card. My father's office booked it." "Aha!" Beatrice shouted triumphantly. "Her father's office. Likely story. She stole a credit card number, Sarah. She's a fraud. If you don't remove her, I am calling corporate immediately. I will have your badge number." Sarah panicked. The threat of corporate complaints was her kryptonite. "Miss," Sarah said, her voice trembling but stern, "grab your bag. We need to sort this out on the jet bridge. You can't stay here." "I am not moving," Bella said, clicking her seatbelt shut. "I have a valid ticket. If you have a problem, check the manifest properly. I am the lead attendant, and I am ordering you to deplane for failing to comply with crew instructions," Sarah recited, quoting the handbook she was currently violating. "If you don't move, I will have to call the air marshal." Bella looked Sarah dead in the eye. "Call him." The air marshal for Flight 909 wasn't technically an air marshal that day. He was an off-duty airport police officer named Derek Vance, who was catching a free ride to London for a security conference. But Vance, known around JFK as the Hammer, never considered himself off-duty. He was a man who missed the good old days of policing, where questions were optional and force was the default. Vance was sitting in 4C, nursing a whiskey, when Sarah approached him, wringing her hands. "Officer Vance, we have a situation in 1A. A passenger is refusing to deplane. Possible fraud. Hostile." Vance's eyes lit up. He set his whiskey down. "Hostile? Say no more." He stood up, adjusting his blazer to ensure his badge and the bulge of his firearm was visible. He walked to the front of the cabin with the swagger of a cowboy entering a saloon. He didn't see a 19-year-old girl. He saw a target. "Problem here," Vance boomed, his voice filling the small space. Beatrice Vanderwall clapped her hands together. "Finally, a man of authority. Officer, this creature has stolen a seat and is threatening us." Vance looked down at Bella. She hadn't moved. She had put one side of her headphones back on. "Hey!" Vance barked, reaching down and ripping the headphones off her head. He threw them onto the floor. "I'm talking to you." The cabin went silent. Even Beatrice looked a little shocked by the violence of the motion. Bella looked at her shattered headphones, custom-made, $4,000, lying on the carpet. She took a slow, deep breath. When she looked up at Vance, her eyes were cold fire. "You just made a very expensive mistake, officer." "Is that a threat?" Vance stepped closer, invading her personal space. He placed a hand on the back of her seat, leaning over her. "I don't care who you think you are. You're disrupting a federal flight, That's a felony. Now get up, grab your trash, and walk off this plane before I drag you off." "I'm not disrupting anything," Bella said, her voice steady, though her heart was pounding. "I am sitting in the seat I paid for. This woman," she gestured to Beatrice, "is harassing me, and you are assaulting me." "I am enforcing the law," Vance yelled. Spittle landed on Bella's cheek. "You think you can play the victim? I know your type, scammers. You steal a card number, book a high-end seat, and hope no one notices." "Well, she noticed." He pointed at Beatrice. "Show me ID. Now." Bella reached into her bag. "Slowly," Vance shouted, his hand twitching toward his waist. "Hands where I can see them." Bella froze. "You asked for ID. My wallet is in the bag." "Dump the bag on the seat," Vance ordered. Bella gritted her teeth. She upended her small leather backpack. Out tumbled a MacBook Pro, a bag of trail mix, a passport, and a sleek black titanium credit card that made a heavy thud when it hit the tray table. Vance ignored the passport and the card. He picked up the trail mix and tossed it aside. He grabbed the passport, flipping it open. "Bella Sterling," he read, sneering. "No middle name. 19 years old. What does your daddy do, Bella? Sell drugs? Run a hustle?" "He runs a company," Bella said. "And you're holding his credit card, the black titanium one." Vance looked at the heavy metal card on the table. It was the Centurion card, the invite-only American Express that had no limit. But to Vance's biased mind, a black teenager with a black Amex didn't mean wealth. It meant theft. "Fake," Vance declared. He tossed the card like a frisbee at Sarah, the flight attendant. "Run it. I bet it comes back stolen or declined." Sarah fumbled to catch it. "Officer, maybe we should just check the manifest." "Run it!" Vance screamed. He turned back to Bella. "You're done. Get up. You're under arrest for credit card fraud, theft of services, and resisting an officer." Bella didn't move. She looked at the digital clock on the bulkhead. 9:08 p.m. The flight was scheduled to push back at 9:15 p.m. "I'm going to make one phone call," Bella said quietly. "And then I'll go with you if you still want me to." "You don't get phone calls." Vance grabbed her wrist, twisting it painfully behind her back. "You get cuffs." "Let her make the call," a voice shouted from row 3. It was an elderly man in a suit. "This is excessive, officer. She's just a girl." "Stay out of this or you're next," Vance threatened the crowd. He looked back at Bella. "Get up!" Bella winced at the pain in her wrist, but didn't cry out. "Officer Vance," she said, reading his name tag. "If you drag me off this plane, you are kidnapping me. My father is Daniel Sterling, CEO of Sterling Dynamics." Beatrice Vanderwall let out a shrill laugh. "Sterling Dynamics? The tech conglomerate? You expect us to believe Daniel Sterling, the richest man in New York, is your father, and he let you leave the house looking like a hobo?" "He likes my hoodies," Bella muttered. Vance yanked her up from the seat. Bella stumbled into the aisle. "That's it," Vance grunted. He spun her around and shoved her face against the overhead bin. He pulled out his handcuffs. The metal clicked ominously. "Wait," Bella said, her face pressed against the plastic. "My phone, it's in my hand. Let me unlock it. One call. If he doesn't answer, I'll walk off silently. I swear." Vance paused. He loved the power, but he also knew the audience was turning against him. The elderly man in row 3 was filming. Giving her one chance to fail would prove he was reasonable. "One call," Vance hissed. "Speakerphone, so we can all hear you lie to your fake daddy." He released the pressure on her arm just enough for her to lift the phone. Bella's fingers trembled as she hit speed. Dial Nufter 1. The cabin was dead silent. Even Beatrice leaned in, a smirk plastered on her face, ready to hear a dial tone or a confused accomplice. Ringing. Ringing. Hello? A deep, gruff voice answered. It wasn't a secretary. It was a man who sounded busy. "Dad," Bella said, her voice cracking for the first time. "Bella." The voice shifted instantly from busy to alert. "You should be in the air. Why are you calling? Is everything okay?" "Dad, I'm being arrested." "What?" The voice turned to ice. "Where are you?" "I'm on the plane. Seat 1A. A woman said I didn't belong here, and now an officer named Vance has me in cuffs. He says I stole your card. He says I'm a fraud." There was a silence on the other end of the line, a silence so heavy it felt like the cabin pressure had dropped. "Put him on," Daniel Sterling said. The voice was low, dangerous. Vance laughed. He leaned toward the phone. "Listen here, whoever this is. This girl is coming with me downtown. If you want to bail her out, bring proof of ownership for that credit card to the 12th precinct. Otherwise, stop wasting my time." "Who is this?" Daniel asked. "Officer Derek Vance, NYPD. And I'm the guy ending this charade." "Officer Vance?" Daniel said. "I don't think you understand. I don't want to bail her out. I want to leave the gate." "Is the pilot there?" "The pilot is busy pre-flighting," Vance scoffed. "He doesn't have time for you." "I see," Daniel said. "Bella, sweetie?" "Yes, Dad." "Hang up, I'll handle it." The line went dead. Vance smirked. He hung up. "What a surprise. Your daddy abandoned you." He clamped the second cuff onto Bella's wrist. "Let's go." Beatrice clapped slowly. "Bravo, officer. Trash taken out." Bella looked at Vance with a look of genuine pity. He didn't hang up because he abandoned me. He hung up because he needs to use his other line. "For what?" Vance sneered. "To call the owner of this airplane." "Regal Atlantic owns this plane, you idiot." "Actually," Bella whispered, as Vance shoved her toward the door. "Regal Atlantic leases this plane from Sterling Aviation. My dad owns the lease." Vance rolled his eyes. "Move." They took 2 steps. Suddenly, the hum of the engines, the auxiliary power that kept the lights and air conditioning running, cut out. The cabin plunged into darkness. The air vents stopped hissing. The emergency exit lights flickered on, bathing the cabin in a ghostly green glow. "What is that?" Beatrice shrieked. "Why did the power go out?" The cockpit door flew open. Captain Miller, a man with 30 years of experience and a face white as a sheet, stormed out into the first-class cabin, holding the interphone handset. "Who is removing the passenger in 1A?" the captain shouted, his voice shaking. Vance puffed out his chest. "I am. Officer Vance. She's under arrest." Captain Miller looked at Vance, then at Bella in cuffs, then back at Vance. He looked like he was about to vomit. "Uncuff her," the captain ordered. "Excuse me." Vance bristled. "I have jurisdiction here." "You don't have jurisdiction over a paperweight," the captain yelled, losing his composure. "Ground control just contacted me. Sterling Dynamics just revoked the leasing certificate for this aircraft, effective immediately. This plane is legally grounded. We are not Regal Atlantic Flight 909 anymore. We are trespassing on private property." Beatrice stood up. "What does that mean?" The captain turned to Beatrice. "It means, Ma'am, that Mr. Sterling has remotely killed the avionics, and he said the power doesn't come back on until his daughter is released, and the people who touched her are off his jet." The silence that followed Captain Miller's declaration was heavier than the darkness that enveloped the cabin. The only light came from the eerie, sickly green glow of the floor path emergency strips and the fading twilight outside the porthole windows. Without the auxiliary power unit, APU, running, the air circulation fans spun down into a mournful whine. The silence was absolute, save for the heavy breathing of Beatrice Vanderwall and the erratic clicking of Officer Vance's jaw as he tried to process what he had just heard. "Remote kill?" Vance stammered, his grip on Bella's arm loosening just a fraction, though he didn't let go. "That's impossible. You're the pilot. You fly the plane." "It's a Sterling Aviation jet, you moron," Captain Miller hissed, stepping closer, his face illuminated by the flashlight app on his phone. He shone the beam directly into Vance's eyes, blinding him momentarily. "Modern avionics on private fleets have remote disable protocols for anti-hijacking. Mr. Sterling just designated this aircraft as compromised. The flight computers are fried. The fuel pumps are locked. This is now a 60-ton paperweight." "Well, turn it back on," Beatrice shrieked from the darkness. "Call him back. Tell him to turn it back on. I have a gala in London tomorrow night." "I can't call him back," Captain Miller said, his voice dripping with venom. "He locked us out of the comms system too. The only line open is the emergency frequency, and he delivered a message through ground operations." "What message?" Vance challenged, trying to regain his bravado. "That he's obstructing a federal officer. I'll add that to the charges." Captain Miller laughed, a sound devoid of humor. The message was simple. The trespassers have 5 minutes to vacate the premises before he files charges for industrial sabotage and kidnapping. "Kidnapping?" Vance scoffed. "This is a lawful arrest." "Is it?" Bella spoke up. Her voice was calm, cutting through the rising panic in the cabin like a knife. She stood straight, despite her hands being cuffed behind her back. In the green emergency light, she looked less like a teenager and more like a statue of judgment. "Officer Vance," Bella continued, turning her head to look at him. "You arrested me for credit card fraud, but you never ran the card. You assumed it was stolen based on my appearance. That is racial profiling. You used excessive force without provocation. That is assault. And now you are holding me on a private vessel that has revoked your right to be here. That is kidnapping." "Shut up," Vance shouted, shoving her forward. "You don't know the law." "Actually," came a voice from the back of the first-class cabin. The elderly man in row 3, the one who had tried to intervene earlier, stood up. He held his phone up, the flashlight beaming steadily on Vance. "I believe she knows the law quite well." "And so do I. I'm retired Judge Arthur P. Henderson, Southern District of New York." Vance froze. The name Henderson was legendary in New York legal circles. He was a hanging judge, a man who ate corrupt cops for breakfast. "I've been recording since you threw her headphones," Judge Henderson said, his voice gravelly and authoritative. "And I have to say, officer, in my 40 years on the bench, I haven't seen a more clear-cut case of deprivation of rights under color of law. That's 18 U.S. Code, Section 242. It carries a 10-year sentence. Life, if kidnapping is involved." Vance's face went pale in the harsh light of the flashlights. Sweat began to bead on his forehead. The cabin was getting hotter. With the AC off, the body heat of 300 passengers was turning the metal tube into a sauna. I was acting on a complaint," Vance stuttered, pointing a shaking finger at Beatrice. "She said the passenger was a stowaway." "Me?" Beatrice gasped, clutching her pearls. "I just asked a question. I didn't tell you to assault her. Don't you pin this on me, you brute." "You said she stole the seat," Vance yelled back. "She looked like she stole it," Beatrice defended. "Look at her. It's a misunderstanding." "It's too late for that," Captain Miller interrupted. He looked at his watch. "You have 2 minutes left of Mr. Sterling's grace period. Officer, if you don't take those cuffs off her right now, I am legally obligated to open the doors and declare a hostage situation to the Port Authority police waiting outside. And I promise you, when the SWAT team comes through that door, they won't be asking for your badge number." Vance looked at the door. He looked at the judge recording him. He looked at Bella, who was watching him with an expression of absolute pity. "Uncuff me, officer," Bella said softly. "It's over. You can still walk away with your freedom if you stop now. Maybe." Vance's hand went to his belt. His fingers fumbled with the key. The arrogance was leaking out of him, replaced by the cold, hard reality of self-preservation. He wasn't a hero anymore. He was a man trapped in a dark metal tube with a billionaire's daughter and a federal judge. Click. The cuff sprang open. Bella rubbed her wrists, grimacing at the red marks left on her skin. She didn't thank him. She simply reached down, picked up her backpack, and retrieved her phone. "Power," she whispered. She tapped the screen of her phone 3 times. Suddenly, a low hum vibrated through the floorboards. The overhead lights flickered, then blazed to life, blinding everyone for a second. The cool rush of air conditioning blasted from the vents. The avionics panel in the cockpit beeped a joyful confirmation. "How?" Vance whispered, shielding his eyes. "I thought your dad locked it." "He did," Bella said, sliding her phone into her pocket. "He gave me the master override code. He told me to use it only when I was safe." She looked at Captain Miller. "Captain, I'm sorry about the disruption, but my father is serious. This flight is cancelled. He wants the plane empty so his legal team can document the scene." "Cancelled?" Beatrice screamed, stepping over her husband's legs to get to the aisle. "You can't cancel a transatlantic flight because of a spat. I have tickets. I have rights." Bella turned to Beatrice. The girl who had been quiet and polite was gone. In her place was the heir to the Sterling Empire. "Mrs. Vanderwall," Bella said, her voice projecting clearly through the silent cabin. "You don't have tickets. You have a contract of carriage. And Section 9, Paragraph C, of the Regal Atlantic Terms of Service, which my father's lawyers helped write, states that the carrier may refuse transport to any passenger whose conduct is disorderly, abusive, or violent. You incited a false arrest. Your contract is void." Bella slung her backpack over one shoulder. She looked at the open cockpit door, then back at the stunned passengers. "Everyone else," Bella said, her voice softening. "My father has arranged for 3 charter jets from a competitor airline to take you to London. They are waiting at Gate B4. There will be an open bar and a $5,000 compensation voucher for each of you for the trouble." A cheer erupted from economy class. The tension broke instantly. "Except for them," Bella pointed a finger at Beatrice, Richard, and Officer Vance. "You 3 are banned from the replacement flights. You can find your own way to London, if you can get past the police at the gate." "Police?" Vance swallowed hard. "Real police," Bella corrected. "Captain, open the door." The jet bridge was a tunnel of judgment. Usually, deplaning first class is a dignified affair. You grab your coat, nod to the flight attendants, and breeze past the envious glares of the people in boarding group 5. But today, it was a walk of shame. Bella walked out first. She didn't run. She didn't hide her face. She walked with her head high, the red marks on her wrists clearly visible. As she stepped into the terminal, the waiting area was not empty. It was packed. Word had spread. The video from Judge Henderson had been live-streamed. Billionaire's daughter profiling incident was already trending on Twitter. A phalanx of uniformed officers from the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey stood waiting. These weren't the airport mall cops. These were the heavy hitters. In front of them stood a tall man in a bespoke navy suit, holding a briefcase. This was Daniel Sterling's personal attorney, Elijah Thorne, a man known in the city as the Shark. "Ms. Sterling," Elijah said, stepping forward and bowing his head slightly. "Your father sends his love. He is watching via the security feed." "I'm okay, Elijah," Bella said. "Just tired." "We will get you home shortly," Elijah said. He turned his gaze to the jet bridge door. "But first, business." Officer Vance stepped out of the plane. He had tried to hide his badge, tucking it into his pocket, but it was too late. 2 Port Authority officers stepped forward immediately, blocking his path. "Derek Vance?" the lead officer asked. "Yeah, I'm a cop. NYPD," Vance said, trying to flash a smile. "Had a little situation on board, handled it, but—" "You are detained," the officer said flatly. "Please place your hands behind your back." "Detained? For what?" Vance's voice cracked. "I was doing my job." "We have a statement from the captain and video evidence of assault, unlawful imprisonment, and falsifying a police report," the officer recited. "And the NYPD Internal Affairs Bureau is online too. They want your badge and gun surrendered immediately." The crowd in the terminal, passengers waiting for other flights, janitorial staff, and curious onlookers pulled out their phones. The flashes were blinding. "This is a mistake," Vance yelled, as the cuffs, real, heavy steel cuffs, were clicked onto his wrists. The irony was not lost on the crowd. Someone shouted, "How do the cuffs feel, buddy?" Vance was marched away, his head hung low, the hammer finally broken. Then came Beatrice. She emerged with her chin up, refusing to acknowledge reality. She was dragging a Louis Vuitton carry-on, her husband Richard trailing behind her like a beaten dog. "Out of my way," Beatrice commanded the officers. "I'm a Diamond Medallion member. I am going to the lounge to speak to a manager about this incompetence." Elijah Thorne stepped into her path. He didn't look angry. He looked bored, which was far worse. "Mrs. Vanderwall," Elijah said smoothly. "Who are you?" she snapped. "Get me a manager." "I am the manager of your current situation," Elijah said, handing her a thick envelope. "My name is Elijah Thorne, General Counsel for Sterling Dynamics." Beatrice froze. She looked at the envelope, then at Bella, standing calmly by the window. "This," Elijah tapped the envelope, "is a restraining order. It is effective immediately. You are to remain 500 feet away from Ms. Sterling and any Sterling Dynamics property at all times." "Property?" Beatrice laughed nervously. "I'm in an airport. I'm not on her property." "Actually," Elijah smiled, a predatory showing of teeth, "Sterling Dynamics owns the lease on Terminal 4's luxury lounge. We also own the catering company that services Regal Atlantic. And, as of 10 minutes ago, Mr. Sterling purchased the holding company that insures your husband's hedge fund." Richard Vanderwall dropped his bag. His face went grey. He what?" "Your liability insurance, Mr. Vanderwall," Elijah said, turning to the husband. "It's been cancelled. High-risk clients, you see. Prone to public outbursts that lead to lawsuits. Very bad for business." "You can't do that!" Beatrice shrieked. "Richard, tell him!" "Shut up, Beatrice," Richard finally snapped, his voice booming. The crowd went silent. "Just shut up. You've done enough." "Furthermore," Elijah continued, ignoring the domestic dispute, "you are now on the federal no-fly list, pending an investigation into interfering with a flight crew. You won't be flying to London, Mrs. Vanderwall. In fact, I don't think you'll be flying anywhere for a very long time. I hope you like Amtrak." Beatrice looked around. The crowd was laughing. People were pointing. The video of her screaming, "She smells like street food," was playing on a loop on someone's iPad in the front row. She looked at Bella. She wanted to scream, to slap her, to demand respect. But for the first time in her life, Beatrice Vanderwall realized she was small. Money had always protected her, but she had just run into wealth. And wealth didn't scream. Wealth simply deleted you. "Bella," Beatrice tried, her voice trembling. I was just stressed. It was a long day." If you could just tell your father. Bella didn't let her finish. She didn't scream. She didn't curse. She simply put her noise-cancelling headphones back on, covering her ears. She turned her back on Beatrice and looked out the window at the empty tarmac. It was the ultimate dismissal. You are not worth listening to. Escort them out, Elijah ordered the security team. Public side, curb pickup. As Beatrice was led away, protesting to the air, and Vance was shoved into the back of a squad car visible through the glass, Bella felt a hand on her shoulder. It wasn't a cop. It wasn't a lawyer. It was Sarah, the flight attendant who had started it all. She was standing there, holding Bella's shattered headphones, tears streaming down her face. "Miss Sterling," Sarah sobbed, "I am so sorry. I should have checked. I was scared of her. I need this job. I have 2 kids. Please don't let your dad fire me." Bella took the headphones. She looked at the woman who had been too weak to do the right thing. This was the final test. The villains had been punished. But what about the enablers? Bella sighed. She looked at Elijah, who was waiting for her signal. "My dad doesn't make hiring decisions for Regal Atlantic," Bella said to Sarah. "But he does own the training company they use." Sarah held her breath. "You won't lose your job, Sarah," Bella said. Sarah slumped with relief. "Oh, thank God, thank you. "But," Bella cut her off, "you are going back to training, basic training, diversity and bias modules, 6 weeks, unpaid. If you pass, you fly again. If you fail, you find a new career." Sarah nodded vigorously. "I understand. I deserve that. Thank you." Bella turned to Elijah. "I'm ready to go home now. I don't think I want to go to London anymore." "Actually," Elijah checked his phone, "your father is already in the air. He left London an hour ago. He's coming here. He wants to take you to dinner in New York." Bella smiled for the first time that night. A real smile. "Where?" "He bought a restaurant," Elijah shrugged. "Apparently they refused to seat you once last year. He thought it would be a good place to discuss the future of Officer Vance's pension. The restaurant was called Le Jardin de Nuit, a 3 Michelin star establishment in Midtown Manhattan, known for its 6-month waiting list and its strict dress code. Tonight, however, it was empty. The lights were dimmed, the jazz band was playing softly to an audience of 0, and the staff stood at attention against the walls. At the center table sat 2 people, Bella Sterling, wearing a fresh hoodie, this one cashmere, and her father, Daniel Sterling. Daniel wasn't just a CEO, he was an industrial titan. He built Sterling Dynamics from a garage startup into a global defense and aerospace empire. He was a man who moved mountains, but right now, he was just a father meticulously cutting a steak for his daughter, even though she was fully capable of doing it herself. "You look tired," Daniel said, his voice rough with suppressed rage. He wasn't angry at her. He was angry at the world for touching her. "I'm fine, Dad. Really?" Bella said, picking at a truffle fry. Elijah handled it. "The video is everywhere. I don't think we need to do anything else. Karma is already hitting them." Daniel stopped cutting. He set the knife down with a clink. "Karma is a concept for people who can't afford lawyers, Bella," Daniel said darkly. "We don't wait for the universe to balance the scales. We balance them ourselves, and then we break the scale so they can never weigh anything again." Elijah Thorne walked in, holding a tablet. He looked like he hadn't slept, but his eyes were sharp. "Status report, Elijah," Daniel commanded without looking up. "It's a bloodbath, sir," Elijah said, sitting down. "The video Judge Henderson took has 70 million views in 4 hours. The hashtag for first class racist is trending worldwide. But we have a complication." "Of course we do." Daniel took a sip of wine. What is it? Beatrice Vanderwall went on the Laura Ingram angle 20 minutes ago, Elijah said, sliding the tablet across the table. She's playing the victim. She claims you doctored the footage. She says Bella was verbally abusive before the camera started rolling. She's suing you for defamation, emotional distress, and, wait for it, cyberbullying. Bella laughed, choking on her water. Cyberbullying? She told the cop to arrest me because of my hoodie. It doesn't matter what the truth is, Elijah warned. It matters what the narrative is. She has hired Arthur P. Gentry. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Gentry? The Wolf of Wall Street defense attorney? That's expensive. She's burning through her husband's liquidity to pay him, Elijah explained. Her strategy is simple. Drag this out in court for 5 years, make it ugly, and hope we settle just to make the noise go away. She wants $20 million. Daniel wiped his mouth with a linen napkin. He stood up. She wants a war? Daniel buttoned his jacket. She thinks she knows what power is because she has a platinum Amex and a husband in a hedge fund. Elijah, initiate Protocol 0. Bella looked up. Dad, isn't Protocol 0 for, like, corporate espionage? Protocol 0, Daniel corrected, is for total asset liquidation of a hostile entity. We aren't just going to beat her in court, Bella. We are going to dismantle the very ground she stands on. By the time I'm done, Beatrice Vanderwall won't be able to get a loan for a library book. Meanwhile, across the city, Beatrice Vanderwall was pacing in her Upper East Side penthouse. The view of Central Park was breathtaking, but she was too busy screaming into her phone to notice. I don't care what the video shows, Richard, she yelled at her husband, who was sitting on the sofa with his head in his hands. We are the victims here. That girl, that thug, she baited me, and now her father thinks he can bully us. We are Vanderwalls. Beatrice, Richard said, his voice hollow. My partners called. They saw the video. So, tell them it's fake. They fired me, Beatrice, Richard whispered. Beatrice stopped pacing. What? They invoked the morals clause. I'm out. And because the firm is under investigation by the SEC, thanks to an anonymous tip that came in an hour ago, my equity is frozen. We have no income. So what? Beatrice scoffed, though her hands were shaking. We have savings. We have the Hamptons house. We have the Aspen Lodge. We'll sell the Aspen Lodge to pay Gentry, win the lawsuit against Sterling, and be richer than ever. You need to stop being such a coward. The doorbell rang. That must be Gentry. Beatrice smoothed her hair. Finally, someone with a spine. She marched to the door and threw it open. It wasn't Gentry. It was a process server, and behind him were 2 NYPD officers, not friends of Vance, but serious, grim-faced detectives. Beatrice Vanderwall? The detective asked. Yes. You are under arrest for filing a false police report, conspiracy to commit kidnapping and, let's see here. The detective checked his notes. Federal wire fraud. Wire fraud, Beatrice shrieked. I haven't wired anything. Apparently, you used your husband's corporate card to book your flight today, the detective said, snapping the cuffs on her wrists. And since he was terminated for cause an hour ago, that expense was flagged as unauthorized. The company is pressing charges. They say you've been using company funds for personal travel for years. Beatrice looked back at Richard. Richard, do something. Richard looked at his wife being cuffed. He looked at the officers. And then, for the first time in 20 years, he made a decision for himself. Officer, Richard said, standing up, check the safe in the bedroom. You'll find the receipts she hid. I'm willing to testify. Beatrice's scream echoed down the hallway as they dragged her into the elevator. 6 months later. The trial of the people versus Derek Vance and the People versus Beatrice Vanderwall was held at the New York Supreme Court in Lower Manhattan. It was the hottest ticket in town. The courtroom was packed with reporters, civil rights activists, and curious onlookers. Bella sat in the front row, looking calm. She was dressed in a simple blazer, looking every bit the young executive she was training to be. Daniel sat beside her, his presence dominating the room like a dark cloud. The defense table was a mess. Derek Vance, the former officer, looked like he had aged 10 years. He had been denied bail because of his threats to the flight crew. He wore an orange jumpsuit that clashed horribly with his pale, sweaty skin. Beatrice Vanderwall sat separately. She was out on bail, but just barely. Her Chanel suit was gone, replaced by a modest department store dress her lawyer had forced her to wear to look sympathetic. She looked gaunt. The socialite circle had exiled her. Her friends didn't return her calls. Her husband had filed for divorce and was currently the prosecution's star witness. The judge was not Arthur Henderson. He was a witness, but the Honorable Justice Elena Rosso, a woman known for her zero-tolerance policy on courtroom antics. "All rise," the bailiff boomed. Justice Rosso took the bench. She looked at the defense table with eyes that had seen every lie in the book. "We are here for sentencing regarding Mr. Vance," Justice Rosso said, "and opening arguments for Mrs. Vanderwell. However, I understand there has been a change in plea." Vance's lawyer stood up. "Yes, Your Honor. My client, Mr. Vance, wishes to change his plea to guilty on all counts." Beatrice gasped. She whipped her head around to glare at Vance. If he pleaded guilty, he would testify against her to reduce his sentence. "Mr. Vance," Justice Rosso looked at the ex-cop, "you understand that by pleading guilty to deprivation of rights and assault, you are facing a mandatory minimum of 8 years in federal prison." "Yes, Your Honor," Vance whispered. His voice was broken. I want to say something to the victim." "Go ahead." Rosso nodded. Vance turned to Bella. He didn't look at her with hate anymore. He looked at her with fear. "I'm sorry," Vance said. "I saw a kid in a hoodie, and I wanted to feel big. I was wrong. I was a bully with a badge. Mrs. Vanderwall. She egged me on, but I made the choice. I deserve this." "Objection!" Beatrice's lawyer, Gentry, stood up. "The defendant is characterizing my client without evidence." "Sit down, Mr. Gentry," Justice Rosso snapped. "Mr. Vance has allocated. I accept the plea. Mr. Vance is sentenced to 10 years in federal prison, eligible for parole in 8. Take him away." As Vance was led out, the heavy clanking of his chains filled the silent room. He didn't look back. Now, all eyes turned to Beatrice. "Mrs. Vanderwall," Justice Rosso said, "your co-defendant has fallen. Your husband is testifying against you regarding the fraud charges. Do you still wish to proceed to trial?" Beatrice stood up. She shook off her lawyer's hand. She walked to the podium. "I want to speak," she said, her voice trembling but defiant. "I am a victim of a conspiracy. That girl," she pointed a shaking finger at Bella, "is a billionaire's daughter. She bought this court. She bought the police. I was just trying to keep the first-class cabin safe. I am a good person. I donate to charity." "Mrs. Vanderwall, stop," her lawyer hissed. "No," Beatrice screamed, her composure shattering. "I won't stop. I am Beatrice Vanderwall. I am not some criminal. I demand that you dismiss these charges. This is America. You can't put me in jail for speaking my mind." Bella stood up. "Your Honor," Bella said softly. "May I approach?" "This is highly irregular," Justice Rosso said, intrigued. "But given the circumstances, make it quick." Bella walked to the podium. She stood next to Beatrice. The contrast was striking. The young, composed black woman, and the older, hysterical white woman. Mrs. Vanderwall, Bella said, her voice picked up by the microphone. You say you donate to charity. Do you remember the Urban Youth Coding Initiative? Beatrice blinked. What? I don't know. I go to galas. My father started that charity, Bella said. You attended the gala 3 years ago. You pledged $10,000. See? Beatrice turned to the judge. I am generous. You pledged it, Bella continued, but you never paid it. In fact, we looked into your charitable history. You pledge money to get your name in the program, and then you default on the payments. You've done it to the Cancer Society, the Homeless Shelter, and the Orphanage Fund. The courtroom gasped. Bella pulled a document from her blazer. This is a record of your finances, subpoenaed by the prosecution. You aren't rich, Beatrice. You're broke. You've been living on credit and fraud for a decade. The reason you were so angry about me being in first class wasn't because you thought I was a criminal. Bella leaned in close. It was because you knew you couldn't afford to be there anymore. You saw a girl in a hoodie who had the one thing you lost, real freedom, and it drove you mad. Beatrice's mouth opened and closed. She looked at the jury. They weren't looking at her with anger. They were looking at her with disgust. The illusion was gone. She wasn't a powerful socialite. She was a fraud in a department store dress. Beatrice slumped over the podium, sobbing. Not tears of remorse, but tears of defeat. I'll take the deal, Beatrice whispered. What was that? Justice Rosso asked. I'll take the deal, Beatrice wailed. I plead guilty, just make it stop. I don't want everyone looking at me. Justice Rosso banged her gavel. It sounded like a gunshot. Guilty plea accepted. Beatrice Vanderwall for the charges of wire fraud, filing a false report, and conspiracy, I sentence you to 4 years in minimum security prison. Furthermore, you are ordered to pay restitution to the airline and to Ms. Sterling. She has no money, Your Honor, Bella interjected. We don't want her restitution. Then what do you want? Justice Rosso asked. Bella looked at Beatrice, a broken heap on the floor. I want an apology, Bella said. On video, uploaded to the same account that posted the arrest. Beatrice looked up, her mascara running down her face. Please, no. I have no dignity left. Exactly, Bella said, cold. That's the price of the ticket. 1 year later. The lights at the JFK International Airport terminal were bright, but they couldn't outshine the flashbulbs of the press gathered at Gate B4. They weren't there for a celebrity or a politician. They were there for the inaugural flight of Sterling Horizon, a new budget airline launched by Sterling Dynamics with a specific mission, affordable luxury for everyone, regardless of what they looked like. Bella Sterling stood at the podium. She was 20 years old now. The hoodie was gone, replaced by a sharp, tailored suit, but on her wrist she still wore the beat-up vintage Patek Philippe watch. It was her reminder. A year ago, Bella spoke into the microphone, her voice confident and steady. I was told I didn't belong in a seat I had paid for. I was told that my appearance determined my worth. I was handcuffed for wearing a sweatshirt. She paused, looking out at the crowd. In the front row sat her father, Daniel, beaming with pride. Next to him was Judge Arthur Henderson, now retired and serving on the board of Bella's new company. Today, Bella continued, we launch an airline where the only thing that matters is the ticket in your hand, not the color of your skin or the brand of your clothes. And to inaugurate this flight, I have a special passenger. Bella gestured to the side. Sarah, the flight attendant from that fateful night, walked onto the stage. She looked different, calmer, humbler. She wore the crisp new navy blue uniform of Sterling Horizon. Sarah completed 6 months of rigorous bias training, Bella announced. She didn't just pass, she finished top of her class. She learned that service is about respect. Sarah is our chief cabin officer today. Sarah took the mic, her hands shaking slightly. I learned the hard way that prejudice blinds you, she said, tears in her eyes. Ms. Sterling gave me a second chance I didn't deserve. I intend to earn it every day. The crowd applauded. It was a moment of redemption. But redemption is only half the story. The other half is justice. The aftermath. While Bella cut the ribbon on her new airline, life looked very different for the people who had tried to destroy her. Derek Vance was currently inmate 97894 at the FCI Otisville Correctional Facility. Because he was a former cop, he couldn't be in the general population. He spent 23 hours a day in a solitary cell for his own protection. The man who loved the spotlight and the power of authority now had zero authority over anything, not even when the lights in his cell were turned off. His pension was gone, seized to pay legal fees. His wife had left him 3 months into his sentence. He was truly alone. Beatrice Vanderwall was serving her time at a minimum security camp in Connecticut. But for a woman who had never washed a dish in her life, minimum security was hell. She was assigned to the laundry detail. Every day, the former socialite who screamed about Bella smelling like street food spent 8 hours scrubbing the stained uniforms of other inmates. Her assets had been liquidated. The penthouse was sold to pay the restitution. Her husband, Richard, had moved to Florida, remarried a yoga instructor half his age, and ghosted Beatrice completely. Beatrice had no visitors. The only mail she received were bills for legal services she could no longer afford. She had become exactly what she feared most: irrelevant. The final scene. Back at JFK, the ceremony was over. Bella walked down the jet bridge of her new plane. She found her seat 1A. She sat down, the leather familiar and comfortable. She pulled a pair of headphones out of her bag. They were new, white, and pristine. A young man, maybe 18, walked past her. He was wearing a baggy hoodie, ripped jeans, and carrying a skateboard. He looked nervous as he glanced at the first-class cabin, clearly expecting someone to stop him. He held an economy ticket. Bella saw him. She saw the hesitation in his eyes, the fear that he didn't belong. "Hey!" Bella called out. The boy froze. "Yeah? Am I in the way?" Bella smiled. She pointed to the empty seat next to her. 1B. "The flight is pretty empty up here today." Bella lied. The flight was fully booked, but she owned the plane. "Why don't you take this seat? It has more leg room for your board." The boy's eyes went wide. "For real? I didn't pay for first class." "It's on the house," Bella said, putting her headphones on. "Just sit back and enjoy the flight. You belong here just as much as anyone else." As the boy sat down, looking like he had won the lottery, Bella closed her eyes. The engines roared to life, not with the sound of drama, but with the sound of progress. The past was behind her. The sky was ahead. And this time, no one was going to turn the lights out. And that is how Bella Sterling turned a moment of humiliation into a legacy of power. Beatrice and Officer Vance thought they could judge her by her cover, but they forgot that you never mess with a Sterling. They lost their careers, their freedom, and their dignity, while Bella built an empire. It's a brutal lesson in karma. The higher you hold your nose, the harder you fall when the rug gets pulled out. What would you have done if you were in Bella's seat? Would you have waited for the police, or would you have called your dad immediately? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of justice served cold, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story about entitled Karens getting exactly what they deserve. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.